It's time now for Media Watch on France 24. Emma James is in the studio.
Hi
Good evening, Emma. Now, it's Brexit dominated this evening, and a lot of online discussions, I'm sure, following the debates in Parliament, and some politicians getting a better reception than others. Tell us more.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting to see who's getting the toughest time right now with regards to Brexit. The New Statesman has lined up its worst suspects. Guilty, they say. This edition will be out tomorrow. The humiliating failure of our political class. And you've got David Cameron, who, of course, was the architect of Brexit, and Boris Johnson, and of course Theresa May. Now, there are some politicians out there who are winning a few friends right now. Interestingly, though, not a British one. Donald Tusk was speaking to the European Parliament. He, of course, the president of the European Council. And he was calling on all European leaders to consider whether or not the UK could be allowed a long extension so that they can actually take into account the views of those 6 million people who signed a petition, 1 million people who took to the streets to say that they wanted to see an end to Brexit. Now, he says that they are not being represented by UK Parliament and that they should be represented instead by European leaders. Interesting to see that people making comments like this whisper it, but Donald Tusk has been throughout this entire wretched process a far better friend to the UK than the UK's own government.
Wow.
Pretty harsh stuff.
Yes.
Now, somebody else who's come out well from this conversation at the European Parliament is this man, Alan Smith, who is a Scottish MEP. Scotland, of course, voted to remain in the EU, and he had some very emotive and emotional words. Take a listen.
If we are removed against our will, independence will be our only route back. Shirkaleg, I'm not asking you to solve our domestic discussions. I am asking you to leave a light on so that we can find our way home. Thank you.
Now, that phrase really does seem to have caught people's imagination. The hashtag leave a light on has been used pretty widely by people who want to stay within the EU. This made me cry, says one woman, not because it's sad, but because it gives me hope. Because there is this feeling that people aren't being listened to. This gentleman, a far more straightforward approach. Oh, I like that. Very Scottish. And this one, a more artistic one, creating a union flag, a European Union flag, along with the light bulb with the Scottish flag.
God, it's really the big irony, isn't it, of this whole Brexit debacle. It's kind of taking control back and watching the disintegration of the United Kingdom as it happens.
He is absolutely, Alan Smith is certain that if they are out of the EU, then they want to be out of the UK.
Well, Nicola Sturgeon has said it. As soon as the Brexit process is completed, she wants another referendum. Now, some of the UK MPs, Emma, getting the strongest criticism are those who are changing their minds.
Yes, absolutely. Boris Johnson has said that he thinks he's going to back Theresa May's deal now. And this is a photograph of him taken a while ago now when he actually resigned. This person saying, remember when Boris Johnson hired his own photographer to do a photo shoot of himself signing his resignation letter because he couldn't support the deal. He's changed his mind now. Now, another U-turn in Westminster today, or apparent U-turn, is Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's penned an article in the Daily Mail, which is very much for Brexit, it has to be said. And he's got a lot of play on their pages, I think it's fair to say. Now, he's apologised for saying that he is likely to change his mind and back Theresa May's deal, saying it is a bad one, it doesn't deliver on the promises made in the Tory party manifesto, and its negotiation was a failure of statesmanship. But, as it says in this tweet, half a loaf is better than no bread. People, unsurprisingly, not very impressed because we've been told for months
that's what people have been saying that's what Theresa May has been saying for ages.
No deal is better than a bad deal. We've heard it over and over again. Lots of people mocking this idea of the bread, mid-loaf crisis, says this gentleman. And this woman says, dude, we currently have access to the entire bakery.
Wow.
Anna Soubry, who quit the Conservatives over the issue of Brexit and is now an independent MP, says Rees-Mogg is allowed to change his mind and change his vote, but the British people aren't, because, of course, everyone is still ruling out the idea of a second referendum. Have I Got News for You? The comedy show came up with this. Rees-Mogg admits changing his mind on May's deal, but remains 100% behind making as much money from Brexit as possible.
Well, we know he shifted his business headquarters to the Republic of Ireland.
Absolutely, indeed.
All right. Do we have anything else, or have we
I can carry on if
Please
you wish.
do.
I thought we were out of time. But yes, still on the subject of Rees-Mogg, because there's plenty out there on him.
Right.
This is from the cartoonist Christian Adams in the Evening Standard. The Rees-Mogg Guide to Etiquette. Never walk on the right-hand side of a lady, because he is frightfully posh. If there's anyone out there who still hasn't heard what he sounds like.
Extremely cutting stuff.
Never wear brown in town. I didn't know that was a thing, but there we go. And then the fifth one is never believe a word I say. Now, interestingly, The Spectator has really gone in for the kill on Jacob Rees-Mogg, saying this is the end of Mogmentum, which was a rather odd phrase to describe his rise in power. But what they point out here is that he had a remarkable Brexit, going from being a virtual unknown, obscure backbencher, except by people who like to poke fun at him, without any formal position, and he'd become the most powerful figure, really, other than the Prime Minister. But that's all changed now. They say he has revealed his weak knees. Final word on this, of course, Theresa May now saying that she will go once Brexit is all done and dusted. Some of the reactions: the Queen should dissolve Parliament and call for a general election. The Queen should firebomb Parliament and start again, says another. And another one saying, why don't we just get the Queen in herself to sort this mess out?
Well, the only consolation I say all along is the wonderful satire that accompanies it from
Indeed.
great British sense of humour. Thanks for that, Emma.